I'm Mark.
And I'm Zach.
Every week, on a Saturday, in the Fab Radio International Studios,
we discuss 3 of the week's comic book releases and decide if we want to...
pull or pass. Hello and welcome to Pull or Pass, your weekly geeky comic book radio show. This is issue 8, and I'm Mark.
And I'm Zach.
Hello, Zach.
Hey, Mark.
We had some technical difficulties, so we are actually recording this in Zach's front room. So it's not quite the full show. The radio version, unfortunately, wasn't broadcast on Fab, so we're not having any music this week, and I'm having to edit it at home. So if the editing's rubbish, that's me. So, yeah. Cool. Welcome to the show and stuff. We wanted to make sure we got something up, and I suppose we should talk about the news, although there wasn't any news.
Yeah, news is a bit bare bones this week.
We've had like weeks before where we had like bad news or not very much news or not very interesting news, but I've found pretty much nothing.
We have the death of Tom Lyle.
Cheery.
That's it. I'd like us to have a happy thing to balance the scales, but...
Yeah, and it is very sad. And I do remember the Scarlet Spider stuff that he did, and I thought the Scarlet Spider was really cool. So, yeah, that is very sad news. He was super young as well, wasn't he? Like 60-something?
Yeah, 66, I think.
That's really, really young.
Yeah.
But not, you know what I mean, really young to die.
Yeah.
And that's really sad. Do you know what really annoys me? I was desperately looking for news, for anything that we could put into the news section and talk about it. And I found a lot of not news.
Yeah, tons of not really news.
I found one article that said, Moon Knight TV series and Blade might be related. We don't know, and then I read the article, and it said, we don't know anything about Blade, we don't know anything about the Moon Knight TV series, so that means they might be related.
Yeah, I guess.
That's not news, that's just speculation. And it was on I wasted a minute and a half of my life to discover something that I already knew could be, they might be related.
They might.
They might. But
they also might not. If we report on everything that could or could not happen.
I mean, we could there might be a Thunderstrike TV show. There might be. And maybe I should write an article about how there might be a Thunderstrike TV show, and that'll make it more likely to happen, right?
That's right, and I hear that the Thunderstrike TV show might be linked to the Volstagg musical.
Oh, Volstagg musical!
That's what the Marvel Cinematic whatever really needs.
I want a Volstagg musical. That would make me very happy.
I'll write it.
You right.
I'll write if you direct.
Right, so you write the Volstagg musical and I'll write the Thunderstrike TV show. And obviously it'll get commissioned. You heard it first here on Pull or Pass radio show. That's
right. It might happen.
It might happen. But that really annoyed me. What else did I find that wasn't news? It's confirmed that Joker 2 is coming out, is a thing.
It's still confirmed.
We knew that. This isn't news.
Yeah, it's... I guess this is it, whereas we need news to fill the first 10 minutes of this episode. Obviously...
Well, we don't know, because we're not recording for radio, so we can make it as long or as short as we like.
Freedom.
I suspect we're going to run short, because I haven't got very much to say.
But I guess comic book news sites, if that's their entire thing, they still have to have news even if there is no news.
It was definitely no news, and I did lose my temper.
Yeah, fair.
I did,
but we're here now, and it's okay, I guess.
Thanks, Zach.
It's all right, Mark. Everything's going to be totally fine.
Let's talk about this week's comics. We got our comics from Travelling Man. They are our sponsor. Zach, why don't you tell our listeners about Travelling Man?
So, Travelling Man are your local comic book store. They also do manga and the board games and the RPGs and that.
Well, they're your local comic book store if you live in Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle, or the other place.
York.
I like York as well. It's got a nice wall.
Yeah, York. Solid wall.
It's lovely.
Wall.
It's lovely to visit.
Aye.
But we live in Manchester, so Travelling Man are our local comic book store. They're brilliant.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted.
That's all right. I think we've covered the gist. Mark, why don't you tell the lovely people at home what a pass is? Or what a pull is.
I mean, I could edit that, seeing as I'm doing the editing and it's not a live show or anything, but I'm not going to, because it's funny that you look dumb. Would you like me to explain what a pull is?
I don't care anymore.
Okay, so a pull is a casual subscription service run by your local comic shop. For example, Travelling Man. And you don't need to give them a direct debit or anything like that. You don't need to go in every week. The whole point is that it's there as a service to you to make sure you don't miss anything that you want to get in single issues. So if there's a one shot you want, you can just say stick it on my pull. If you've bought a comic the previous week you really liked and you decide you wanted to add that to the list of comics that you subscribe to, you can add that. Or you can preempt stuff and say, well, the new series of XYZ is coming up. I would like that. When it comes in, please can you put it on my pull? You can then go in every week, every month, on payday, whenever you feel like it, and collect either a small amount of comics or a big fat dirty pile of comics if you've left it a while.
Yeah.
And everybody likes a big fat dirty pile of comics. Well, maybe not dirty. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it's like a casual subscription service. And at any point you can take stuff on and off your pull. And yeah, you get like your comic books, what you want, and you don't miss out on stuff.
Aye.
So there you go.
Proper good like.
It is proper good like. So this week, we looked at 3 different comics from 3 different publishers. We looked at 2099 Alpha from Marvel, Infected Scarab from DC, and Heartbeat from Boom. Shall we look at 2099 Alpha first?
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah. This was supposed to be... We generally tend to go for first issues, and this was sort of like a one-shot to establish other stuff, and then...
It's a pre-first issue.
Yeah, and I didn't like the full-page logo. Insert Mark's usual rant about full-page logos.
Just take it from a previous episode and just drop it.
Yeah, you might as well, because it's the same rant every time, and I am still cross.
I feel like sometimes it can feel like they're going for that cinematic thing of, opening sequence, credit shot.
I would really like a 2099 film.
Yeah,
I think that the characters are strong enough that they could have like a separate cinematic universe, and Marvel 2099 cinematic universe. I'd like that.
I feel like we're going to get an animated look into 2099 before anything else.
Not so bothered by animated.
Could be good though.
Who would you have play Miguel O'Hara? Someone hot and Hispanic. I mean, Antonio Banderas is probably too old now, isn't he?
Probably a little bit.
30s Antonio Banderas would have been great. Anyway.
Yeah. We'll come back to that next week.
So the full page spread, right? Wasting 2 pages with a logo. But then they did have a very nice Nuevo York full page spread that made me go, ooh, sci-fi.
Yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah. So,
in contrast.
A wrong full page spread and a good full page spread. I do like it.
And are they back to back as well?
They are back to back, yeah.
The double full page spread.
It was, yeah. A double. Yeah. And
could have just put the logo in the corner with the New York and everything would have been fine.
No, exactly right.
Not this week.
But the artwork did feel very sci-fi, which is what I want from 2099. I want it to clearly not be New York with superheroes in. I want it to be a sci-fi scenario. And I thought they did that very well. This is what the future looks like rather than...
Yeah. And I think some of the world building is there. I think what's difficult about this for me, and I imagine for you as well, is this is essentially a reboot of 2099. So,
yeah, that wasn't what I was expecting. I was quite cross.
I thought, because we've had like 30 years of on and off titles checking in on 2099, and previous Amazing Spider-Man 2099 had his own series.
Yep.
I've said 2099 so much now
It's
that
a lot of
stopped
times.
meaning anything.
I read the was it 96, 94, something like that. The very first, when they first launched them with like Spider-Man,
Yeah.
and then Ravage, who was like a new superhero, Doom and Punisher. I read that first run and I loved them. I just don't think they sold well enough, so they kind of cancelled it.
It's one of those where, yeah, the original series, which I've read bits of, not as much as you, by the sounds of it, kind of seemed to dip out, but then, yeah, Spider-Man got revisited in kind of probably about 5 years ago, maybe slightly more.
Okay.
I think he had about 4 or 5 trades worth of
that's
comics,
good.
which was cool, and they have kind of checked in with the future selves at times, but yeah, it's a weird one, especially with kind of recent Spider-Man acknowledging the future. And he was in Spider-Verse as well, the
He
comics
was.
and stuff, so I think now it's kind of weird to go, yeah, we're resetting all that because it's been 30 years and 2099 will be different now.
And that makes it particularly misleading with the front cover. The front
Yes.
cover had all of the 1990, let's say 1992, I think it actually was.
Yeah,
1992.
92 sounds right,
Putting
I
it back into context, because I was quite young. So yeah, around 92, I think. The 92 run, all of those characters from that were there. There was the X-Men 2099, there was Punisher 2099, even Ravage at the back, the original one before he turned into a weird-ass mutant.
Which I guess we are seeing kind of reinvented versions, so we're going to get a new Spider-Man, a new Doctor Doom, who seems kind of the same, but
Yeah, but we'll come
more
back
new.
to Doom. But it just, I was expecting, have some more 2099. Here are all the people you
Yeah.
remember from the 90s. Because not only was that what I wanted, that's what the cover suggested.
Yeah, it feels like the entire one-shot very much plays on nostalgia and then kind of immediately goes, yeah, you're not going to get that here. We're kind of wiping the slate clean.
Yeah, and even to the point where on the front cover they had the original Punisher 2099, and then they're advertising a completely new, different Punisher 2099 issue later on in that same comic with like a skull mask and stuff rather than the original one. And I'm like, but why?
Yeah, I mean, they explain in the back, there's like a letter from the editor where they explain that Matthew Rosenberg pointed out at a Marvel creative retreat that 80 years ago Marvel started and 80 years from now would be 2099, and that's kind of where this came from, the idea to reboot and update. But
Sure, 2099 probably isn't going to look like what 1992 people thought it would look like. There are some people alive today that may see 2099.
here's hoping.
Well, not me, but you might. But we hit 2000 AD, and 2000 AD didn't give a monkeys.
Yeah, that's true.
Haven't we just hit the day of Blade Runner, like this week or something?
Recently, yeah.
And we hit Terminator Day, or whatever that's called. Judgment Day, we hit Judgment Day.
And Back to the Future.
Yeah, we've had Back to the Future. No one cares. Why? Gah.
So yeah, this kind of updated, somewhat weird look. It gives you, so very much like when we read the first, the jumping on point for 2000 AD.
Yeah.
This kind of gives us, 4-page looks at each of the characters that are coming in the series. But it's strange because there's some one-shots we're getting that...
Aren't they mostly one-shots?
Yeah, it's kind of... Amazing Spider-Man has led into this and then will continue throughout. But then we're getting a Conan one-shot, a Ghost Rider one-shot, a few other one-shots, and we kind of see some of those characters, but then not others. So it's like a prelude to some of 2099, but...
I mean, there was one moment that I was like, ooh, when... I'm not going to ruin it, but Doom has a prisoner. And I was like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
That's cool, that's clever, that's interesting.
Yeah, and that
But that
feels
was-
like a big reveal.
Yeah, and but that was probably the only thing I really got out of it.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. it's a bit of a weird one because although it's a slightly oversized issue, I think it's 32 pages, it kind of doesn't...
Could have been 30 without the stupid logo.
True, very true. But it feels like in those pages, it doesn't actually give you an overall clue to what the plot's going to be, which is a bit weird.
So I bought this with the hope that it would hype me and get me back into 2099, and it didn't.
Yeah.
I'm still curious because there's a new Punisher and there's Conan 2099, which is a great idea. So I'm still curious, and I'm probably going to buy those two titles out of curiosity, but I'm not overwhelmed, and I've been actively put off anymore. And I wanted to be hyped, I wanted to get into it, and I wanted 2099 to be something that I could invest in.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
Yeah, I similar feelings. I thought we were going to get like a main 2099 series and then some one-shots or a bunch of 2099 series. Instead, we've kind of got what feels like a very bare-bones re-establishing of the future.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, I suppose we can't really say pull or pass after a one-shot, but and I kind of covered that with I'm still curious but not overwhelmed.
Yeah.
What about you? What are your thoughts on reading more 2099 books?
It's a weird one. I think I would, as I've said in the past, I think it's something that I would be eager to read when it's finished and to see how it plays out.
Oh, okay,
and how it works interconnected. Individually, I don't know. I do feel like, okay, maybe if you're really into Nick Spencer's Spider-Man right now, it's going to make more sense for you. You're going to have the issues leading into it, and maybe you'd really enjoy the book on that.
And neither of us had that.
But yeah, we're not those guys, unfortunately. So this is kind of a pass for me, but I think similar to you, I think I'm curious to see what's going to come in the some of the one-shots. I know you want Conan and Punisher. I'm quite interested in Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
So...
You like Ghost Rider,
I do like some Ghost Rider.
And I'm not particularly into Conan. I just think it's fascinating that they've gone for a Conan 2099, and it's probably going to be a massive gimmick that doesn't work, but I'm curious to see how they've done it.
Yeah, what will that include and how? And
yeah, Conan.
It is interesting that since they've kind of started doing Conan comics again, it's like, and it'll be in any event we can fit him in because of reasons.
Yeah, they've brought him into the Marvel universe as well, haven't they? And
they
it's
have.
like, really, you didn't need to do that. Just do classic Conan comics.
I think we've touched on it before. We don't see the Star Wars comics crossing over with Marvel's main universe, and that's all fine and dandy.
I mean,
but we could. It'd be weird.
But isn't it set in a galaxy far, far away in the vast future?
Yeah.
So maybe you could have
all the past. Hard to say.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they've done Star Trek and
Green Lantern.
I was gonna say Doctor Who, but yes.
Okay.
So these crazy crossovers are possible. Power Rangers and
Justice
League. They had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Batman. Dumb crossovers are doable. Some of them are almost readable.
Some are.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd like to put on the table. I want to see 2099 Star Wars.
So would I. Let's move on to Infected Scarab. Front cover is a statement of intent, isn't it?
It is a little bit.
Hello and welcome to our horror comic.
Yeah.
And it doesn't disappoint if you were looking for a horror comic.
The problem there is I wasn't really...
I know you weren't.
Yeah, as I'm sure you know, I have mixed feelings about this.
Well, you're a big fan of Blue Beetle, aren't you?
I am, and this feels like horrible things happening to beautiful, beautiful Blue Beetle. And I don't know how I feel. If this was like a little Elseworlds tangent jaunt of a comic...
Alternative reality.
Yeah. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. Like when they did the Edge of Spider-Verse stuff and you get like super horror Peter Parker, I'm cool with that because ultimately it doesn't affect what's what. I think this is kind of a... No, this is canon Blue Beetle was like, oh, okay, why?
Yeah, it was explicitly a horror comic, to the point where I felt like they'd changed the artwork from classic superhero art to something explicitly horror.
Yeah.
It had a manga feel, but it didn't look like manga. I felt like it was body horror.
Yeah.
It was definitely body horror, and
kind of felt James Stokoe, Junji Ito, body horror-esque.
I really liked it, but it felt weird that it was the Blue Beetle. It could have been anything.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of, this is a bit obscure, but it reminded me a little bit of The Guyver, if you remember The Guyver. Probably not.
I do not, but...
No. But it reminded me of The Guyver, where you get all this power from a suit, but it's very invasive.
Okay, yeah.
I suppose it's not dissimilar to the symbiote, I would guess, but...
Yeah.
I like that kind of horror. I've always liked body horror. I think it's scary and yicky, and it makes your skin crawl, and I like horror.
But I guess all that works with the Scarab and it affecting you. It does all make sense. It's just, it feels pretty heavy, and I think the fact that this is essentially a one-shot, and it kind of ends with, let's find out more in Batman and Superman, and it's like, I kind of don't want this to be a footnote. If this was 6 issues to explore how Blue Beetle being transformed into a more monstrous version, and we were going to see the internal struggle and how that worked.
I think you're right. I think that there's more to this story, and it's fascinating. The art's great. I love the conflicted nature of the Blue Beetle. There was a lot to like, and if I could have pulled this, I would have done. I'd have loved the 6-part arc, but I'm not interested in what happens to Batman and Superman. I'm interested in what happens in this really quite well-told body horror story about a man who is conflicted by his desire to do bad things, knowing they're wrong, but he's kind of pushed towards it by the infected Scarab. I thought that it was great.
Yeah.
I really liked it, and I would have read much more of it. I'm not sure it's Blue Beetle, but I'm not sure I care. And I'm not interested in this character being a footnote, like you say.
Yeah.
I want this character to be full. I want to see more of this character and a story, maybe a redemption arc or whatever. I want this. I don't want, this is a really cool character, now we're going to make him a supporting character elsewhere, and he's not going to be worth very much.
I think it goes back to DC being unsure what to do with Blue Beetle. So the first series we got, which was pre-New 52, was like 6 volumes, quite well received. I think everyone who read it loved it. And then we saw a New 52 reboot, which ran for 2 volumes, then was cancelled. A rebirth reboot.
Rebirth reboot? I can't believe that was actually a thing.
Which ran for, again, like 2, maybe 3 volumes and was cancelled, and now it feels like they're going, well, people clearly like Blue Beetle, just not the comics we're making about him, so let's kind of see where he fits. And I feel like this is one of those instances of, we've not done anything with him for about a year, let's kind of give people something and see how it goes, and then we'll try and figure it out later.
It felt like an indie. Do you know what I mean? It felt like this was a new character, not an established...
I think if you picked up an Image book about a superhero turning evil, which Image have done, let's be honest,
yes.
I think that's what this feels like. It feels like Image or Dark Horse or would do a book about and tell you, hey, this is an established hero and he's been infected by something, now he's going to be evil. But conflicted. I think that feels like it could have been an indie book.
It really does.
Someone else would have put out.
And it was dark enough in a lot of places that they could have put the Black Label on it.
Yeah, maybe that's it. It could have been a Black Label 3-parter like we keep seeing, or a Black Label whatever.
It should have been a Black Label.
Seeing it as a Year of the Villain tie-in is... I don't know. It doesn't belong. I mean, maybe... I haven't read any Year of the Villain until this point, so maybe it does completely fit in and everyone's down with it except me. But
so again, we've kind of put a comic on that you can't really talk about pulling because it's a one-shot. Maybe we shouldn't put one-shots on.
I mean, sometimes it works. Sometimes we pick a one-shot and it's like, yeah, this was great and it's worth talking about. I think in this case we've had 2 one-shots that are kind of but if you want to carry on with it, it's kind of not carrying on with the same thing.
Yeah, and I really like this book, and I would read more about the infected Scarab, not having him as a support character and drop all the interesting stuff. So
yeah, I think that's totally fair, and like you say, it is well written. So it's Dennis Hopeless Hallam, who did many things for Marvel the last few years, and he's a good writer. So I think it is the kind of project that could have had a lot more issues and a lot more space to work with. So
I'm more annoyed than anything having read this book, because there's so much potential there, and I feel like it's been wasted in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and maybe, you know what? Maybe we're completely wrong, and he won't be a small part in Batman and Superman. Maybe he's going to be right there, Batman, Superman, and Blue Beetle.
Maybe.
But I don't believe that, unfortunately.
No.
So yeah, I think this is a pass as well, but with a pass with a kind of. But if you wanted to do more,
I'd buy that.
I'll always go back for more Blue Beetle, apparently. So, gimme.
Sound. Should we move on to Heartbeat by Boom?
Yeah, let's do that.
What the hell?
So this is a weird one, and I do have context for why it's a weird one. But
I don't know what I want to say about it. I don't feel like anything happened, and it starts with a very striking image, and like, oh hello, and then it just felt weird, and like it hadn't got anywhere by the end of the book.
And so the context I've got, which I think might help with that, is that this is kind of a European comic that would have been released in Spain, France, Italy, wherever, as one book. So all the issues we're going to get would have been...
What, so a graphic novel?
Yeah, I guess that's what you'd call it.
Just released as like a graphic novel?
Yeah, but for some reason, we've seen a few times in the last couple of years that American publishers kind of take established or pre-released books from Europe and go, right, but that needs to come out in singles because that's the market.
Really?
Yeah, so we had Infinity 8 a couple of years ago. It might still be ongoing, actually, that they've kind of chopped up into chapters and released as singles to then release as a hardback the way it always was intended.
That seems utterly pointless.
A little bit, and I think that's kind of my overall feeling with this is...
That makes more sense. This book has suffered because they've...
changed it.
Well, not even changed it, just mutilated it.
Yeah, it's...
Oh, okay.
It's weird because it feels... We know it's... because of the description we've got, which is essentially a description for the graphic novel version, we know it is going to be a kind of vampire... bully victim and vampire guy team up to,
we didn't see that though.
Havoc, but we
didn't see no vampires.
But for some reason that's what we're given in the description. So the description tells us what the full series is going to be, and instead we see 20 something pages of not quite that. It's all very establishing, but that's because it's the first 20 pages of...
Now you've said that, I understand it, and it was never meant to be a comic book. That's crazy. So why didn't it just get the license and release it as a book?
It's a really good question, because we see both. We see some titles are split up into single issues. We see other titles that are just, hey, here's the graphic novel, we translated it. So I don't know on this occasion why. I think for me, I do want to read this, and I want to see how it plays out as a longer format story, but I think I am going to have to wait for that to be released.
Yeah, there's no point whatsoever in getting this in singles. It was never intended to be... There's a format in some ways when it comes to comic books released on a monthly basis. You have to have a cliffhanger. You have to have... No wonder it didn't work.
Yeah, there isn't really a cliffhanger or anything. It just kind of comes to an end.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I think the art's really nice, and I think the writing style is kind of...
The art's great, to be fair.
Yeah, the art really is, and it's got that kind of start of a manga feel. I mean, all the characters are in an Asian high school, so that's obviously contributes largely to the manga feel.
Yeah.
But I think as well the writing is kind of peculiar, but interesting. It's kind of quite sparse at times.
Yeah. But But again, that makes more sense that it was never. I've said it 100 times now. I'm going to stop.
That's all right.
I'm really frustrated, and I didn't know that until you told me, and suddenly it's like a light bulb's gone on in my head, you know?
Yeah, I feel like this does really suffer from not being the format it was intended.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I know Boom are releasing Faithless, which is also by Maria Yvette. So I guess because of that, it's like maybe that's why they're doing this in singles as a kind of, well, if you like Faithless, you'll like this. But I feel like they should have just...
I think they've shot themselves in the foot.
Put a trade out or a hardback.
And it did with me. I can see this actively putting people off to pick up this first issue and go, what's this?
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, so I probably would be interested in reading the graphic novel. So
Yeah.
definitely not pulling, but might pull the trade that should have been a trade from the start.
Yeah,
maybe. I
agree.
I don't think I'd put it on a high priority though.
No, I'm going to pass as well on this in singles, but with the caveat that, yeah, I probably will buy the trade as soon as it comes out because I'm curious. I like the art. I'm interested in the writing, and I like a good vampire story. So cool.
I mean, I like a vampire
give me as a
story,
vampire
but
story.
I didn't see no vampires.
We get kind of one tiny panel of vampirism, but that's all you need to be hooked, right?
Is that right?
I don't think so, but
no, we've had really weird choices this week. Maybe we should do a better job next week.
next week was another interesting one where originally we had planned many one-shots.
Yeah.
And we've kind of reevaluated somewhat.
Yes, indeed.
So,
shall we talk about what we're going to...
Yeah, let's...
So, we did originally have Conan 2099 on there because I thought it was an ongoing series, and it's not, so we got rid of that. We also originally had Tales from the something multiverse of infinity, crazy, DC, long-nameness as well.
Infinite Crisis.
That too.
That multiverse lark.
Yeah. And again, that was a one-shot.
Yeah, looks
so
like
after our experience with one-shots this week, we cut both of those, and there wasn't anything else from Marvel or DC that we thought was appropriate.
Yeah, so we're kind of going for a super all-indie week.
We're going to have an indie week next week, which I don't know whether that's going to...
I mean, some of them aren't the most indie, but...
I mean, I don't know if it's going to isolate people who, like, expect a Marvel and a DC, but sorry if it does. But we had a tough call, because, yeah... We're not quite sure what we're going to have either, are we? We've got 4, so we're going to decide closer to the time.
I think we will definitely have Philadelphia from Image.
Yeah, let's definitely do Philadelphia.
Outside of that, we've got... Boy, have we got options.
Yeah, but I quite fancy the Picard one.
Yeah.
Because I'm really excited about the Picard TV series. So there's a Star Trek Picard by IDW, issue 1 of that. There's another one by IDW as well, but I want to read. Wasn't it the Crow?
Yeah, there's a new Crow series, Hark the Herald.
Okay, well, let's do Star Trek.
Yeah.
We've got Witchfinder: Reign of Darkness from Dark Horse, which sounds very Dark Horse.
Solid name, isn't it?
It does. It does have a solid name.
And then we've got Space Riders: Vortex of Darkness.
There's a lot of darkness going on.
A lot of darkness and a lot of space.
There's a lot of, so that's by Black Mask. I got excited about the darkness because I believe in a thing called love. And maybe I'll cut that. That was terrible. No, I'm not going to...
I think that should stay in.
Okay, that can stay in. But, so we're going to do an Indie Week. We're not 100% sure what we're going to read. And Indie Week could be a great success.
Yeah, maybe it'll be a regular feature.
Or, potentially we could do like a Marvel Week if they have like a something going on.
If they can release 3 titles that aren't, one-shots.
Yeah.
Equally, I'd say the same for DC, but it's going to end up being a Black Label week.
Which I have no problem with. Love me some Black Label.
I think it'd be hard to find a week where DC released 3 legit new titles through mainstream DC.
True. But Indie Week next week.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening to Pull a Pass. We've pulled, we've passed.
We're going to do it all again next week.
And we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to Pull or Pass. To listen again, it's www.mixcloud.com/pull-or-pass.
Or you can listen to the podcast version on Spotify, Anchor, YouTube, and all other good podcast sites.
Join our Facebook group, search for Pull or Pass Radio Show.
Follow us on Twitter at Pull or Pass.